Hi, everyone. Welcome once again to the Adventures Travel Club television show. Betty, I guess it says where we are, right in Salzburg,
Yeah,
huh?
I was waiting for you to ask me, and then it would have been an easy answer. I said, oh, yes, we're in Salzburg.
Manuel gave you a cue sheet
Yes,
on
he
that
did,
thing,
I
didn't he?
guess, yeah.
Well, we are in the beautiful cathedral here in the center of the old part of Salzburg. And, you know, to me, this is very interesting because during World War II, I think it was 1944, this whole cathedral was bombed by the Allies, and so it has been redone, constructed, I think, pretty much exactly the way there was. But, however, though, this cathedral grew over the years. I mean, they started it, and then they added on to it, and so it's had quite a history.
It sounded like it grew over the years. They were giving it vitamins or something like that to make
No,
it.
influx of money, I think, is what it was.
But, you know, you said something about the Allies. We were the ones that did it. But,
Right.
you know, that was not an intentional. I mean, it had to be done because that's where the enemy was.
Well,
you know, and that's one of the perils of war.
Unfortunately,
and bombs,
it is. Unfortunately, it is. Anyway, we are going to listen to our guide as she gives us some more information here on this beautiful cathedral in Salzburg, Austria.
Outside on the grill, there are the three most important dates in the history of this cathedral. In 774, the first cathedral was consecrated here by Bishop Virgil. That was enlarged in the course of the years. Around 1200, a huge Romanesque minster stood in this place until the year 1598, and then there was a big fire. The then ruling bishop, Wolf Dietrich von Reithenau, decided to have the badly damaged cathedral torn down and have one built in the style of his time. However, due to his overthrow, he could not realize his project, and afterwards his successor, Marcus Sitticus, commissioned the Italian architect Santino Solari to build this cathedral that you see now within a very short period of construction, only within 14 years. Considering the implements of that time, it is really amazing. From 1614 until 1628, this cathedral was built, and in 1628, that's the second date outside, it was consecrated. The consecration of this cathedral was probably the greatest festivity that Salzburg has ever seen. 13 European princes took part in it with all their attendants, and great music performances took place here. Now, the third date outside is 1959, and maybe you can guess what had happened. Unfortunately, the cathedral was hit by a bomb. Shortly before the end of the war, on the 16th of October in 1944, the bombardments onto the city of Salzburg started, and that's the first bombing attack. The dome, and you can see into it, was hit by a bomb, and it fell down and tore everything down. And afterwards there was this big hole up there and also a big hole underneath. And above the resurrection picture we have the inscription Notas mihi fecisti vias vitae. This is Latin, of course, the language of the church, and it means thou hast shown me the ways of life for Jesus. And the two sculptures on the left and on the right of the inscription show Bishop Rupert. Rupert is always shown with a salt barrel because he was the first bishop to get the salt mines. Remember, I told you that? And there's the second explanation. He had come here as a missionary, and the Christians understood themselves to be the salt of the earth. There's this saying in the Bible, thou art the salt of the earth. And on the other side we have Virgil. Virgil always being shown with the cathedral because he was the first one to build the cathedral here in Salzburg.
He was the Irish monk.
The Irish monk.
Well, Betty, I think they did one big job on this. And look at the organs. On every one of those pillars, I think there were 5 organs, if I'm not mistaken, in the church. There's an organ right there, and right across from it, well, there's another one there. And then as we look toward the back of the church, there was one there, too. I thought when we were in the church, I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if they played all of those at one time?
I think we'd all run out. You know, wouldn't that be a quite noisy if they were all at one time? Of course, the acoustics were good, as we could tell by listening to our guide.
Yeah. Oh, no, the acoustics were wonderful.
Well, I wonder why in the world they needed 5 organs.
I don't know. Maybe somebody donated one. You know,
Well,
who knows?
I don't know.
I'm not sure. But anyway, we're going to go outside now because there are so many squares that are here in Salzburg, and it could be a little confusing, even maybe to kind of follow us, because we went from one square to the next, and then in one building, and then out, and then you're in another square again. It's just the way that Salzburg is laid out. It's very interesting. You don't get bored, and these guys weren't bored. They were playing chess.
Yeah.
But look at the size of those chess
What
pieces.
fun for them, yeah.
Isn't that
They had
neat?
a crowd around them. Do you play chess?
No.
Did you
no,
ever?
No, it's too intellectual for me. Checkers is my game. This is the
Oh, tiddlywinks.
Yeah, right. That what we just saw, that building there, was the palace of the current Archbishop of Salzburg. But this is where now the bishops, of course, in those days were rulers, and that's the great fort up there, and it had never been captured. No one had captured that. I guess we could make an exception probably during, say, the Second World War, I guess, but at least during medieval times or medieval times.
Medievals, but you know, it's almost a sad commentary, isn't it, when you think that every time something was built, there had to be a fortress to
Yeah.
protect. So this has been going on since, I guess, Adam and Eve, huh?
Betty, we're going to go right now into this little cemetery, which is just sort of tucked away between these churches. Now, remembering the sound of music, supposedly a scene took place here when they were escaping, the Nazis right after they sung in the Salzburg Festival. Actually, it was not filmed here, but it makes for a good story anyway. But here's what I thought was interesting. As they're walking over to the cemetery, there's a water wheel over here, and we can see this water coming down. There's a kind of like a mountain right here. I mean, this is such a beautiful place. Salzburg is one of just a favorite place because there's so much to see and so much to do there. And here we are right next to a cemetery, right next to church, and here's this water wheel coming out.
And that's functional, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, that water is being used.
And a little outdoor shrine.
Yeah, I'm with you on Salzburg, because there isn't a dull moment. You every time you turn a corner, there's something new and exciting to see.
It really is. And so from there, now the cemetery is just here off to our left.
That won't be exciting.
Actually, it was. No, I thought it was.
It's pretty dead when you go there.
Well, it was.
You know.
It's true, and they do want you to, be a little reverent when you do walk in there. But anyway, we're going to find out there was two Americans, I should say, that are buried here. Right.
I enjoy going to cemeteries. That's one of the first things I always want to do when we go into a new place, because it tells you stories. You can read from the headstones.
Right.
The people, where they lived, and how old they were when they died. It's interesting. It's very, very interesting.
Now, besides the below the ground burial, they also have a lot of crypts here that you can see, and these families naturally have owned these for centuries. And unless you're part of that family, you probably can't get in here, when the time comes, anyway. But it is quite beautiful. I saw that priest come out of the door over there, and I was wondering where he was going. I think he was going over to bless a grave over there. I think I got a bit of a shot.
Maybe it was a funeral, huh? Or just maybe there'd been
no, it wasn't a funeral. No, it wasn't a funeral. But they do, when you visit the cemeteries here, they do go ahead and they light a candle, and they have these beautiful candle holders that they have here, and it's really quite nice. So they do remember, and of course in our tradition, in the Catholic tradition, we do always, pray for the dead, and especially on the anniversary date of a person's death, or let's say their birth and going into heaven, we do remember their souls. So, and of course, Salzburg is very, very Catholic, so that tradition, of course, prevails right here.
Well, they've kept it up so well. The plantings, the flowers were beautiful, and the graves themselves, and they were very careful when we came through about not dropping
talking,
paper,
right.
and not talking, and having respect for the dead. And I like that aspect of this a lot. There really is something peaceful about a cemetery. There's a sadness there, of course, but the beauty of the cemetery and the knowledge that whoever did die is now in a better place, hopefully.
Right.
So.
Right. And the other cemetery that impressed me so much was when we were in Oberammergau as well. That cemetery, of course, is so beautiful.
The one that impressed me most of all was when I was in Normandy. And we saw the graves, the military, and it was raining, and Chuck played taps, and we cried and cried and cried. Oh, my. Got to do that trip again, Marv. It was just nostalgic.
Sounds good.
And one person buried in that cemetery was an American. His name was Harry Collins. He is still very well remembered, and on special anniversary days, the officials of the city still lay down a wreath onto his grave. Now, who was Harry Collins? He was the commander of the Rainbow Division that was stationed here after the war. And he was a very good man, very outgoing personality. He saw where help was needed. He engaged himself in organizing care packages. He helped to raise funds for the reconstruction of the cathedral. And he made many friends over here. He became quite popular. He was also very handsome, which helps to make people popular. They called him Hollywood Harry here in Salzburg.
Betty, now we're going to take a look at, as we can see here, it looks like it's built right into the mountain, and the mountain is really right there, but this is the stage entrance over here of the concert hall, Salzburg Concert Hall. And of course, we mentioned just a little bit earlier the Salzburg Music Festival, which is held every year. Now, would you like to buy me a ticket some year for that?
Sure, I'll be happy. I'll send you over there and buy you a ticket and treat you royally. Of course, they only cost about $700, something like that, or $400, something.
Something like that.
Something like that. A
depending
ticket.
on how many concerts that you want to go to.
And you know what? You have to get them a year in advance because you can't, or unless you get, scalpers.
Yeah,
which you can always get the scalpers.
Well,
no, it's a little beyond me. I'll buy the tape.
Maybe I won't go anyway because I just remembered. You know what you have to have?
What's that?
A tuxedo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, forget it.
And I've already told you that Mozart was very much connected with the university. Actually, we thank it to the university that he was born here because his father had studied here. Behind there is the Mozart Museum, and I want to speak about that a little bit. It is just a small museum, and it is on the 4th floor. And you have to walk up because there is no lift. It's a medieval building, but you can do it easily in your own pace, and there's a handle to hold on. And it's just a 3-room apartment that they had originally, consisting of a living room, a bedroom, and a study. And in addition, they had a small entry and a kitchen. The kitchen was outside on the corridor because in those days, very often, they did the kitchen outside, so they didn't have the smoke and the scent inside. And you will not find the apartment furnished anymore because the family had moved into that other one, which I pointed out earlier, and naturally had taken all their furniture with them. But what you find in there are the original portraits, letters, diary notes, compositions, and so forth. And I think it is certainly a thrilling idea to be in that apartment where Mozart had lived until he was 17 years old, if he was not on a journey. What do you find up there? In the living room, I just speak about some of the items. There's inscriptions everywhere. You can have a look at that and you can stay inside as long as you wish. In the living room, you find a violin. It is a half-size violin or a child-size violin, which Mozart got as quite a small boy. And we know so many details about Mozart's childhood from letters. People were great letter writers in those days. Luckily, the telephone hadn't been invented yet, or we wouldn't know anything about that. And we have a letter from a family friend, a certain Mr. Schachtner, who happened to be there on the very day when little Wolfgang got that instrument. And the Mozarts were very sociable people. They would come together for a little chat, for a game of cards, but sooner or later would always pick up the instruments and make music. And that happened also on that very day I'm referring to. Now, when the adults started to make music, the little boy began to beg, "Please, Father, I would love to play my new instrument. Please let me play it." And the father said at first, "No, please keep quiet. You haven't had any instructions yet. You would only disturb, so please keep quiet." But the child did not. And after a while, Leopold Mozart finally gave in to his son, saying to him then, "All right then, You may have a try, but you must play so quietly that you do not disturb. As soon as you disturb, you have to get out of the room. And from that letter we learn now that the boy ran quickly, eagerly picked up his instrument and immediately joined in, only from what he had seen the adults do with their fingers and of course his excellent ears. And that man Schachtner afterwards continued in his letter, I, he said, soon led my violin apart, and the child played alone and faultlessly, and his son, and his father Leopold had tears on his cheeks, because he, as a professional musician, realized immediately that it could not be explained in any way, and that his child was not just a very gifted child, his child was really a genius. And Leopold Mozart afterwards also mentioned in his diary that on one side he considered it a great distinction, however, on the other hand, also a great responsibility to take care of that genius that God had given to his son.
Well, Betty, this church, of course, is the university church. Now, if you were a university student and went to a church like this, what would you think?
Well, what do you mean, what would I think? I would think, well, this is a church.
Yeah, but I mean...
what would I think? What would I think it would be?
These things are magnificent.
Oh,
I mean,
well,
for the students,
I know.
wow.
Oh, for students, yeah, but you know, this is the way it is everywhere.
But the other thing was, too, that this was so close to the cathedral that we saw. And it seemed... And we have to explain that there are so many of the churches and chapels there in Salzburg. It's not that we, take a trip and just go see churches, but you have to see these while you're here.
Well,
I mean, they're just...
like,
and I'd never been in this one before.
It's sort of like going into a museum and seeing the masterpieces, the beautiful paintings, the architecture, the statuary. I think, but you don't want to overdo it, but you surely do
you
want
don't
to...
want to miss it.
No, you would never. That would be awful.
Right. And
that
again,
would be a mortal sin.
Hey, there's the
yeah.
birthplace of Mozart up there on the third or fourth floor.
They've really fixed that up, haven't they, with all the gold? Do you think it was that just for him that has been done, or was that originally like that?
No, well, I don't know. It may have been. I don't know. Some of our people are up there looking
out the window.
Yeah, and it's quite a nice place inside to see if a person's never been there before.
Well, I just love the decor. I love it's those. Aren't those the Habsburg colors?
They might be.
Yeah, look at the pig there eating.
Yeah,
and
well,
then loved it.
It was lunchtime. Now, this is what I like
Doctor
when we
and
go to
Lily.
Europe. I mean, we don't do this all the time, but when we get a chance to, like we did today, we're right in the middle of Salzburg. So we said, those that want to go to a restaurant, fine if they want to go, but most of us opted for this.
Yeah.
To have a schnitzel and a little bit of that wonderful mustard and the
bread. Oh, the bread is so good.
And Gloria's got a Coke.
Fun.
Well,
yeah.
how come Chuck didn't buy her a beer?
Well, I don't think Gloria drinks beer, but
okay.
no, he drinks it.
Well,
for
I followed
her.
him around because Chuck seems to know pretty good beer,
Well,
and so anyway, that's
I don't know what he's showing us there, but it's something. But he's fun to have along.
Oh yeah, this is great, and this is right in the marketplace. And we just said, okay, from the outside of that church, we're just going to sit down and we're going to enjoy ourselves and have lunch and feed the birds.
Could we ever have a program without the birds in it? This is Marv's thing.
Birds of a feather.
So now this is the small chapel that I was speaking about, since the church which they had here originally does no longer exist. It had been torn down after it had been in such a bad condition. See, this area was also flooded very often. In earlier times they didn't have that wall in front of the river that we walked up. Before the river had been regulated, this part had been flooded very often, and that's also a reason why the church was in such a bad condition, and they could not restore it anymore, so they tore it down and had then this beautiful chapel built to commemorate Franz Gruber, the teacher, and also Joseph Mohr. Here you have on the windows you have the picture of the two of them, and also here at the side you have pictures of the two of them. And then here the high altar, of course, shows us the birth of Jesus Christ, this miracle that had happened and that every Christian celebrates and sings of, that Jesus has brought light into the earth. And this song, nothing could really touch the hearts more than the song Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht. For us in Austria, this is always the highlight. When I told you that in the families we celebrate together by praying, reading the Bible, singing, the last part is always Stille Nacht. Stille Nacht is the highlight, and you cannot imagine Christmas without Stille Nacht.
Well, Betty, I love this little town of Oberndorf, and of course the chapel right here, which was built on the site of the old St. Nicholas Church. We visited this
nice?
many
Yes.
times, and of course this is where the beautiful Christmas Carol Silent Night was first performed.
I bought not this time, but before I bought a picture with a little walnut frame around it with a church in it, and it has Silent Night on the bottom. And I have it over my fireplace. I
bought one
Did
this
you
time.
bring? Did you?
Yeah.
I love bringing things like this home and putting them around. I don't buy expensive things, but it's fun. Oh golly, I remember this, and they're
Yeah.
all just
Well,
sort of memories of
I
where
started
you
a
were.
little collection, a little place like that, but while everybody was running off to get over here, I had to use the facility, and the only one that was available was in the museum, and so I dashed in there real quick. In fact, I think you followed me in there if I
Probably.
wasn't mistaken.
No, I didn't follow you in
No,
there.
to the museum,
Okay,
I mean,
that's my
Anyway,
gosh.
I got another one of those little plates. So now I've got two.
Okay.
Because we got one, like you said, you got one before, and so
Yes,
did I.
and
Anyway, the inside of this is absolutely
Oh,
beautiful.
yes. And then when you think about the actual composing of Silent Night, and we were there and sat down and you cogitate a little bit about the background, and then she gave a little talk on it too, and you just feel like it's Christmas and you want
Oh, you do.
to celebrate.
Right.
Yes.
Well, of course, we know that Franz Gruber put the melody to Joseph Mohr's lyrics, and
That be him?
that I believe that. Now, which one is that? Mohr? Is that Gruber?
Let's have more.
Okay.
Let's have a
well,
little more.
Gruber's there on the other one, so we'll
Okay.
have more. What the heck? Yeah, why not? Okay.
And so that part over there was the rich part, which is Laufen, with upper class people. And on this side in Oberndorf, they were the workers, the sailors, and so on. And after the Napoleonic Wars, all of a sudden, that had been one community, yeah? After the Napoleonic Wars, all of a sudden, the river Salzach became the border. And the part over there was all of a sudden Bavaria, and this was Austria. And so they couldn't get together anymore and so on. And at the time when Stille Nacht was composed, this part here was very poor. Yeah, that was after the Napoleonic Wars. And since they were no longer together with Laufen, the people here had no jobs and so on. Yeah, so that was the situation.
Well, Betty, it's been a really interesting time today. I mean, we've been to some really nice places here in Austria, and we're going to continue, of course, next week. We'll be visiting some more places. We'll be back into Germany, and then we're going to be back into Austria again. We have so much more to see and so much more to do. And I just love this part of the world, don't you?
Yeah, but you know what? We say that about every place we go. Oh, I just love this. Oh, we've got to do this again. Because every place you go does leave an impression on you.
Right.
And they're all different. And even though we spend a lot of time in Salzburg and things do look familiar, and the architecture and things, but it's really good to have this kind of a trip. And
Betty, before we go, why don't you give everybody your telephone number so that you can tell them about the other trips that we have coming up?
Well, you had trouble getting that out, didn't you? I'd be
Yeah,
very
I'm
happy to
excited
tell
about
them
the ones
anyway.
you've got
My
coming
phone
up.
number is 559-488-7443.
Thank you very much.
Let me hear them ring.
Right. And we will see you next time on the Adventures Travel Club television show. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.